News tonight on Capitol Hill. The chair of the House Oversight Committee says Michael Flynn, President Trump's former national security advisor, failed to disclose payments he got from Russia as well as Turkey and may have broken the law. The committee announced its findings after reviewing Flynn's application for security clearance. White House won't say if Flynn broke the law. As you know, there are multiple Trump-Russia investigations underway. 4 congressional committees are conducting probes. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. He's a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, so the news that General Flynn may not have complied with law when it comes to disclosing payments from Russia, what do you make of that?
Well, I haven't actually seen the SF-86 form that's in question, Anderson. SF-86 being the form that anybody fills out who's getting a security clearance. It's the Oversight Committee, Jason Chaffetz and Congressman Cummings committee who has seen that. It is true, and I take them at their word, that these payments were not disclosed. And it is also true that if you knowingly misrepresent information, if you lie on that SF-86, it is a felony. So the question becomes now, was it a deliberate omission or was it an accident? And that's something that I would expect both the Oversight as well as my committee, the Intelligence Committee, to look into.
So the House Oversight Committee, I mean, they're saying that the White House declined to provide them with documents related to Flynn. I wonder, A, how significant, how important that is, how surprising it is to you, and how much cooperation has your committee gotten from the White House? Are you satisfied with their level of cooperation?
Well, it's concerning because, of course, you know, it is almost always true in these things that cooperating and putting all the information that you have out there is the right way to go. When you say, hey, we're not providing you with information that we have, it raises in the minds of people like me and the minds of the public the question of why not? And so, you know, obviously the question of whether there was anything more than just inattention to detail in the omission of these payments. And by the way, we should just talk about the very fact that those payments existed. Our national security advisor, getting significant payments from foreign countries. But it is, of course, something that we will be looking into. Michael Flynn has a lot of testifying to do before a number of committees. And recall, Anderson, that he did ask for immunity in exchange for that testimony. So I think one way or another, we're going to hear more from Michael Flynn.
Do you think he should get immunity? I mean, would you want him to get immunity to testify in front of your committee?
Well, I tell you, I would start from the default position that no, he shouldn't. As you know, immunity is awarded because there's a good reason to award it. In the law enforcement context, of course, you give immunity usually to smaller fish because you think there might be bigger fish to go after. So until somebody sat down with Michael Flynn and his lawyers to find out kind of what he has, and by the way, of course, the question is, what kind of legal jeopardy is he in? And that's a question for the FBI and law enforcement, not so much for Congress. Until you know those two things, you can't make a judgment on whether it makes any sense at all to give him immunity.
And as far as you know, that hasn't happened so far with Michael Flynn. Nobody from any of the committees have sat down with him to find out what he has.
On the congressional side, that has not happened. In other words, when he offered to testify in exchange for immunities, both the Senate and the House committees didn't take him up on that offer. What the FBI may or may not be doing with Michael Flynn, obviously, is something that we don't know about. It's an ongoing investigation.
The Senate Judiciary Committee announced today that former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates, as we reported, will be testifying. Also, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper will be testifying in an open hearing. I think they've also been invited to do so before your committee. How important is it to have open hearings versus closed hearings? Obviously, there's a lot of folks who say, look, you can learn a lot more in a closed hearing. They can get into classified information that they can't talk about in an open hearing.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And obviously they'll be constrained from talking about classified information. And in their case, of course, as recent government officials, they may have classified information that they couldn't discuss in public. But I do think it's really important, Anderson, that as many of these hearings as possible happen in the open so that the American public can see what it is that we are seeing as investigators. We can't have a situation where 6 or 9 months from now we come out with a report and there's been no lead up to it. And, how are people going to know what lines of inquiry we followed? So I think we need to have a bias towards this being open. Now, this one I think will be particularly interesting because you'll recall 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, before we went through the whole situation with Chairman Nunes's run to the White House and the way that sort of took us off track for a while, it was precisely this hearing with Deputy Attorney General Yates and with Clapper and Brennan that was scheduled. We were all set and ready to go, and then boom, it just disappeared. So, we may learn when they finally do testify maybe why it was so important that open hearing be canceled back when it was.
Are you satisfied with the pace of things? And we know we learned yesterday some members of the Senate Intel Committee are frustrated with the pace of their investigation. How's it going on the House side?
Yeah, well, you know, of course, we had that sort of 2 or 3 week kind of carnival when we were all sort of wondering what the heck was going on. Since Chairman Nunes has recused himself from the investigation, since Congressman Mike Conaway has taken over that investigation, I think we're back on track. We've agreed on witness lists. We're scheduling hearings, so I do think we're back on track. And it's important. I caught wind, obviously, of everything that was said over on the Senate side. This is a fairly complicated process. I mean, before you start interviewing witnesses, you've got, you know, thousands of pages of documents to review. Many of them have to happen in classified spaces. And you want to think very, very carefully about what order you interview witnesses in as well. So this is not something that can kind of happen in a 1 or 2 week period. And so I'm satisfied that we're back on track in the House. And overall, I would say this is something you would rather do right and comprehensively and in a good, detailed fashion than get it done quickly.
Yeah. Congressman Hyams, good to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Anderson.
Up next, President